Hello everyone, welcome to the March 15th, 2015 edition of the Astrology News Report. I'm your intrepid host, Ron Berger. So let's take a look at the upcoming planetary patterns and predictions. What's in store in the heavens for March 15th to March 22nd and beyond. Okay, on Wednesday, March 18th, Mercury will be exactly conjunct Neptune at 13, almost 14 degrees of Aquarius. It's the planet of rational thinking, Mercury, combining with the planet of dreams and fantasies, Neptune. This may be good for the imagination, but it doesn't promote clear thinking, because Neptune represents the energy of doubt and suspicion. And there can also be a tendency for paranoia. Mercury, of course, is the planet of the media. Expect more than the usual amount of speculation and spin, especially during the middle of the week. Note, too, that the moon is nearby. In fact, all three, Mercury, Neptune, and the moon, will be tightly conjunct late in the day on Wednesday. Since the moon is the emotional subjective mind, combining it with Neptune stirs up a lot of strange feelings, and with Mercury getting influenced as well, obviously, Wednesday is not going to be the right day for making logical decisions. Another point on this is that the conjunction happens to be in Aquarius. This is the sign noted for community actions, humanitarian concerns, the social scientist of the zodiac. So, we'll watch and see what happens there. Okay, so the big event of the week, though, is the new moon, which will be on Friday, March 20th, at 5 degrees Pisces in the sidereal zodiac. This marks the beginning of the Hindu lunar month of Chaitra, named for the nakshatra of the full moon, Chitra, except that on this year, the full moon will fall in the previous nakshatra, named Hasta, on April 4th. Alright, so this new moon is also a total solar eclipse, visible from North Africa, Europe, and Russia. However, unless you happen to be hanging out in the middle of the North Atlantic, somewhere between Iceland and Norway, you won't see the disk of the sun completely blacked out by the moon. Northern Europe will get about 93% of the sun obscured. Traditionally, the Chaitra New Moon is the Vedic Lunar New Year. It happens around this time, or usually the beginning of April, and it is considered important for predicting how the next 12 months will play out. And so, a chart is made for the exact time of the new moon, referenced to the capital of the country we want to consider, to predict conditions for the coming year. For instance, here is the chart for Washington, D.C., indicating a big emphasis on the third house, and the significations of the third house, which in a country's chart is neighboring countries, could be Mexico or Canada, also the country's transportation system, the media and communications in general, and commerce and trade within the country. Therefore, it is especially significant that this year the new moon happens to be a solar eclipse and happens to be the Chaitra new moon. Eclipses in general signal forthcoming changes. An additional factor is that this year's Chaitra new moon is accompanied by a Mars-Uranus conjunction, a combination that I've been talking about for the past several weeks. and which is rather portentous for violent disruptions. So, Mars-Uranus, along with the solar eclipse, is a clear indication that the next 12 months are gonna get a bit rough. And that's not all. Friday, March 20th, is also the day of the Spring Equinox for this year. This is the date when the duration of night and day is equal, also known as the first day of spring for the northern hemisphere, that is. For the astronomer, the March equinox marks the moment that the sun crosses the celestial equator, an imaginary line in the sky which is projected above the Earth's equator. This happens on March 19th, 20th, or 21st every year. From the astrologer's perspective, this is called a Sankranti, an ingress, when the sun is moving from one sector of the sky to another. Sankrantis cause weakness to the celestial energy pattern. Therefore, it is considered to be inauspicious to begin anything important in the material world on the day of, or before, and after the equinox. However, it is auspicious for spiritual matters. Okay, that'll do it for this week's predictions. Thank you for visiting astrologynewsreport.com. I'll be posting updates during the week as usual on Twitter at Astro News Report.